Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's Recovery and Future Generations Policy Development Committee. Apologies, please, Kate. I've had none to date.
No apologies from me either.
Thank you. Any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interests? No, none noted. Thanks, Kate. And then we have the minutes to approve the minutes as from the 28th of September 2021, page 1, page 2, page 3. Any matters arising? No, Kate, thank you. And then we go on to item 4, which is community safety. I have Paul.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Are you okay?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Yourself?
Good. Well, you've come in just the right time because you have the floor again. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me back here. I hope you've had an opportunity to look at the paper that I pulled together for you. Rather than go through it sort of page by page, what I thought I'd do, Chair, is maybe just highlight a couple of points that I maybe want to expand on, and then maybe open it up to colleagues here for a further discussion. I suppose the one point I would like to highlight is that the strategy is due for a review next year, and it's probably something for you, Chair, and the committee here to maybe think about how you can participate in supporting that review of the strategy to make sure that we are considering all of the issues and concerns that we have. So I'll talk a little bit about the previous consultation and the approaches that we had and the documentation and the data that we used to inform the development of that strategy, but also maybe just highlight some of the good bits of work that are going on under one of the strategic priorities, which is the stronger communities. So I think the first point is that there is a slight confusion and misunderstanding about the Safer Swansea partnership. So I wanted really just to sort of expand on that. We as a local authority, as the report says, have community safety responsibilities. We receive a grant from the Police and Crime Commissioner, and we use that to fund 3 posts as highlighted in the report. There is then some residual grant money left to invest then in projects and some of the work that particularly Paul will do with designing out some of the crime that is identified through the course of our work. The Safer Swansea partnership itself is an alliance of statutory partners. So although it is informed by the crime and disorder and within legislation, there is a duty for us to have that partnership. There is no direct money that funds the strategic partnership, so it is the goodwill and the understanding of those particularly statutory partners that contribute to the Safer Swansea approach. And for me, the strength in that partnership is that you can draw on the expertise and skill set and resource from key partners to be able to address some of the issues, concerns and risks that we have. And if we take, for instance, something like the fire starting we have and the issues with fires, is that obviously the fire service will take the lead on that because of their skill set and expertise, but obviously the partners will have roles to contribute to addressing some of those concerns. So I just wanted to make it very clear that when we talk about the Safer Swansea partnership, some people believe that to be the local authority, but it is the broader partnership. But we do have a community safety responsibility within the local authority that we will work with colleagues in this room and other elected members and ward members that if there are concerns within those wards, we will work with members and communities to see if we can address some of those issues that we come across. I talked about the strategy. I've been responsible for community safety and the Safer Swansea Partnership now for probably just coming up 4 years. So my first task was actually to review the old strategy, and I just wanted to sort of highlight some of the data sets that we used and some of the needs assessments that had already been undertaken to help inform the development of the strategy. So I suppose the first point to make is that there was a public consultation, and that is incredibly important to understand what concerns the general public have with regard to community safety, but also to identify where we have done good, not so good, and maybe where we need to improve on some of the areas of work that we develop. As I said, we received the funding and grant from the Police and Crime Commissioner. They also have a crime reduction plan, which is a 5-year plan. So we will align some of our key strategic priorities to ensure that we also meet some of the key objectives that the Commissioner will have in the reduction of crime. The Swansea Wellbeing Assessment, which we are currently on a journey with Joe and the team here in helping inform the development of that. And I think for the first time this year, we've approached it slightly differently, in as much as we've actually used the strategic priorities of the Safer Swansea Partnership strategy as associated topics as part of the crime and safety topic. So I think that's given us a greater focus on being able then to look at what we do well, how we do it, how we are improving the well-being of the people that we work with, to make safe, to support. And I'm rather hoping that you know, there will be some incredibly good, rich data and case studies from that will help inform the development of the strategy going forward. There was the Western Compass Public Perception Survey, which was done in 2017, which helped inform the development of the current strategy. And we used the principles of the Future Generations Act to help shape the current strategy. So those are probably some of the areas that we will clearly use again with regard to developing the strategy. But there's also a new duty that will fall on us next year, which is the serious violence duty, which I think will gain royal assent probably in the middle of next year. And there will be a needs assessment that will need to be done there, which we can use to help also inform the strategy. We're actually quite well placed here in Swansea. We've already started work with Youth Offending Service and the Contextual safeguarding panels to look at the serious violence, particularly with youth violence and some of the issues that we are currently seeing here in Swansea. The 5 key strategic priorities are highlighted in the report that you've had sight of. What I want to really do is just maybe focus on the stronger communities, because that's quite broad in its heading, and just maybe highlight some of the areas of work that we deliver under the stronger communities priority. First of all is the antisocial behaviour. We have a colleague, Gareth, who works with youth justice team looking at the ASB, and he will work on a weekly basis as to the reports of ASB that have had over the previous week, and we'll look to address that using the staged process. There's the general community safety approach, which Paul Evans, of colleagues around the table here, will have met. He is responsible for looking and designing out some of the issues that we have highlighted, in particular the placing of hotspot cameras, which are used and look to deter antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and criminal damage, and they are replaced on a regular basis. We work with ward members who fund the cameras, and it has helped us reduce in certain areas quite significant levels of fly tipping and ASB. I think one of the most important developments over the last 3 years has been the contextual safeguarding approach that this local authority has adopted as part of a pilot. And what that really does, in a nutshell, is takes away the pressures on our statutory social services in safeguarding to more of the environmental issues and the ASB issues. So we as Community Safety and the broader Safer Swansea Partnership have been involved in looking at the environment and the impact the environment may have on, in particularly young people, in their attitudes and behaviours, and how we can address and work with partners to reduce that threat and risk. I chair what's called the Street Vulnerability MARAC, which has been going since March 2018, and that looks very much at a partnership approach to supporting those that find themselves homeless, on the streets, begging, with a whole host of complex needs and risk factors associated with individuals. And I think to date we've had, I think, over 110 referrals, currently working with 14 people, and we've had some very good success in working with housing providers, substance misuse providers, in reducing that threat, risk and vulnerability to those that have met real challenges in their lives. Part of the high street work, which I'll come to, there's been a number of young women there who are not in the criminal justice system, but through the work that the Safer Swansea Partnership did with Devodal, who deal primarily with those in the criminal justice system, we've actually got access to services there for rapid access to prescribing for those women who are sex working, and we've had some success with a number of women now managing their substance misuse and looking to change the sex working they're involved in to hopefully improve their well-being and their lives, and maybe have other opportunities to move them away from that environment. And then the high street, and I can come on to the high street in just a moment. The other area that we work very closely with is domestic violence, the VAUDA work stream, which is the first key priority. We hold a lot of stock and commission. We're commissioned then to work with Megan and the team there in making sure that a victim of domestic violence has a secure environment in which they can live in. So that's looking at things like door and window alarms and other security measures to make sure that they are safe within their own environment. Some of the other initiatives that we've been involved with, we work with the Swansea City Football Club in developing a community safety awareness poster, primarily for young people. It's a calendar there, and that picked up on 4 of the key areas that we work in, which is hate crime, the county lines, radicalisation and ASB and bullying, and that's been incredibly successful. Crucial Crew, which was a 2-week event with primary schools, where we get a number of partners to come in and do some creative work with young people with regard to safety issues, well-being and crime issues, to make them aware and more conscious of their responsibilities, of what they can do to make themselves safe, but also their families and their communities safer. So I think that gives you just a sort of a flavour of some of the activity. We are part of problem-solving groups, of which there are 5, which reflect the 5 key police sectors around Swansea. We attend those on a regular basis, and there is some really, really good, strong partnership working there in understanding some of the key issues within the sectors and our communities, and really looking at how we can address some of those issues. It's not easy. One of the issues we're finding at the moment is that we're having a number of young people being placed into care homes here within Swansea, who are being exploited through the county lines network. Unfortunately, they go missing. That takes up police time. So we're working in partnership to look at how we can support these young people, some of the care providers who are in the private sector, and understand a little bit more about what we can do to help support them. if I just come on to chair, just the high street, and just to give you just a backstory to that. As you may well recall, the Mail on Sunday, I believe, ran a headline. It was the worst high street in the UK. We have found that not to be the case. We have found that there are challenges on the high street, but I think it's no different to any major high street in any city or town around the country, unfortunately. I think we were unfairly targeted, and I think if they'd actually spoken to the community that live in and around the high street, they would echo what I've just said, that they like living there. There are the challenges there. We are investing in the high street. And I think you can see visually it is improving. I think the risk and the issues are being addressed and managed. We still have issues associated with county lines and the exploitation of vulnerable people. We still have an element of sex working going on, but the engagement work through the SWAN project and other partners is helping to address some of those issues. There are concerns about displacement. Currently, the Teen Tunnel is closed because of the development and the contractors working on site there. We're making sure that outreach workers are conscious of the fact there could be displacement, so that the engagement work is still being done. Through the critical incident group being set up and those 4 work streams that are highlighted within the in the report in your papers, we identified some empty properties at the top of High Street, at the Davati end by the crossroads there. I'm leading on that project to bring some of those units into use and to create a safe space, a community hub that will be used by the community for the community, but also for partners to be able to provide some of the outreach services and wellbeing support that some who face huge challenges don't want to go into the city centre, because there may be influences there that will affect their well-being. So we have done a number of community engagement events with the community. They are very keen to see the change of use. We're going to ask and have asked them to develop a name and a brand for that space. And the plan is for a number of low-key activities to be hosted between now and hopefully the end of the year with community members, to garner some more ideas and support as to how that space can be developed and taken forward. So it's been a long time coming, but I think the one thing that we can be proud of is that even through COVID and the pressures that brought, we are in a position now where we're waiting for sort of sign off from contractors for things like the fire certificate and the alarm systems. We've got a space that hopefully we can use going forward. The takeaway is also being developed, and we've just had an announcement that we've been successful in a bid to the food poverty grants, so that money will be invested in the development of a community cafe, which we hope will be taken forward as some form of social enterprise. I think in the paper that I provided, it's given you some idea of some of the services and some of the activity that we hope to run there, but need to stress that this is very much for the community to take forward and own, and we will shadow and help and support them in the early stages. But we would love to see this being taken forward by community members, with us supporting and providing some of the services and outreach. I think I've probably spoken enough there, Chair, to give you just a sort of an overview and a bit more detail to some of the information that was provided in the paper, and I can see there's a number of hands up.
Thanks, Paul. I'll call in Councillor Walton first, please.
Thanks, Chair.
Sorry, Paul. Leslie?
Sorry? Yeah, threw me a bit. Yeah, thank you very much for the report. Really very pleased with all the work that you have done so far. I mean, it sounds like you're tackling a lot of it and making headway. Just a quick sideswipe at the Daily Mail, I'm pretty sure they got a pin, stuck it in a map and chose a high street somewhere over the UK. Because like you say, I mean, the assertion that it's the worst, one, it's totally unhelpful, and two, it's ridiculous comment to come out with. It's just beyond me, but I think that's personally, in my opinion, that's typical Daily Mail. On a more serious note, the one, one particular thing that I'm concerned at is regarding the sex workers, because I realise that the idea is to try and help them and maybe give them other opportunities that they stop following that line of work. But you're never going to get rid of sex workers. I mean, that's a truism. And the one thing that bothers me is if we don't look after them enough, they might then go somewhere else and end up with just the same difficulties that they've got now. So I wonder what's your take on it, and how are we dealing with that? Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. No, I mean, you make some very, very valid points, and we are already seeing that particularly women are looking at different ways of sex working. So some have now decided that it's easier to work from home, set up cameras and charge that way. The Swan Project do a really good job, but they do it out the back of a van. You know, and I think it's the 21st century now, so we need to look at how we can engage with particularly the young women. We have got more outreach work there, so we are trying to address their substance misuse issues. But I think first and foremost, we need to sort of look at it. The majority of these people are being exploited, and they're being exploited by people that use these particularly women for sex work, for them to then be able to buy drugs. So there is no easy solution to this, but if we can try and separate the bad guys and the bad people from exploiting the vulnerable women, to get them into a program where there is some form of substance misuse and control, where we can reduce their vulnerability and need for substances, let the police do their job in arresting the people that are exploiting them, we have and give ourselves half a chance there of hopefully trying to improve the well-being and lives of those people. I couldn't agree more though, Leslie. There are some people that choose to lead this sort of life, and we can't be judgmental about that. However, what we do need to make sure is that they're safe in what they do and they are not threatened or subjected to violence, which is unfortunate. I mean, if you look at some of the areas around the country, I know Ipswich in particular, they had money from government a number of years ago because there were prostitutes being murdered. You know, and that is the extreme of all of this. But we're working very hard, and we haven't stopped trying to engage and work with them. And I'm rather hoping that the space at the top of High Street can be used maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, where there can be some, what I would call more one-to-one engagement in a safer environment, where a cup of tea and a piece of toast can be shared. There can be bloodborne virus testing. There can be sexual health awareness. There can be things done in an environment where, if they feel confident and safe there, they may then come back in the daytime to talk to services about how we can help them. As I said, there's no easy answer or easy solution, but I think a combination of different approaches may help us with that engagement work.
Thanks, Paul.
Yes, Councillor White, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for the report. And I know every day is a different challenge, I should imagine, out there. what I would like to ask, Paul, in regards, you mentioned it on obviously work with fire services and different sort of agencies, partners, and in regards to joined up working and sharing information. Clearly, I imagine you got performance indicators probably for the services. Can you let me know as to who this gets reported to, the indicators, and who actually monitors the actual results? And if I could, Chair, what is the usual timescale for measuring the areas for being flagged up as an area for attention to obviously be dealt with? Have you got any information that you can perhaps share with us on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Every day is a school day for me, Mike, and that brings with it, success, but also some challenges that we work through. So, with regard to the performance indicators, because the Safer Swansea Partnership is an alliance of both statutory and non-statutory. If we pick up on the statutory will have KPIs that they will report on through their own governance structures. However, the Safer Swansea Partnership will have oversight of those 5 key strategic priority areas. So every quarter there is a meeting of the Safer Swansea Steering Group where each of those 5 key strategic priorities will report in on progress made against each of their individual action plans. So that was the thinking behind why we had these strategic priorities as they were. One, they met the need for Swansea with regard to addressing the risks, concerns and vulnerabilities that have been identified through the various mechanisms in the development of that strategy. But it meant that to be honest, we didn't get then lost in huge amounts of bureaucracy with regard to various action plans and KPIs and those taking up huge amounts of time with regard to discussion. So how it works is that each of those work streams will have their KPIs relevant to the action plans they have, bearing in mind that some will have funding from a regional point of view, a national point of view. So my broader portfolio, I will have KPIs that I will need to address with regard to the Home Office, also with Welsh Government, with community cohesion. So the steering group, the Safer Swansea Partnership Steering Group, has oversight of each of those strategic key priorities to ensure that we are meeting the objectives. They then are reported then up to the PSB. So the PSB will have that oversight. But the scrutiny is also, it's on a quarterly or sort of half-yearly basis from the likes of Welsh Government, Police and Crime Commissioner, of which we have to submit returns, and the Home Office with regard to the Syrian Resettlement Programme, Radicalisation Programme, and the Crime Reduction Programme that we've got. With regard to identifying areas where we have significant concerns, I suppose that there are a number of indicators, Mike, that really sort of focuses our attention. One is concerns from yourselves that you will raise with local policing or directly with us about higher levels of antisocial behaviour, be that fly tipping, be that young people congregating outside chip shops at 3 o'clock in the morning when they shouldn't be there, to the problem solving groups where there will be data that will be gained and garnered and collected by the police because of the 101 reported phone calls, the intelligence, the local intelligence that's gathered whilst they do their day job. And these will all come then into the problem solving groups. It's not mutually exclusive to either a local authority or the police. That intelligence is provided and issues are provided by a whole host of other partners. We get obviously significant issues from the registered social landlords with regard to ASB and some of the activity there, through to local businesses that over the last sort of year we've seen. Well, say last year's been reasonably quiet. Prior to the pandemic, some high levels of ASB and criminality within the city centre that are reported in by local business. And I think actually going forward, one of the priorities that we maybe need to consider or expand on within maybe the stronger communities is about the business community and about how we can maybe work better with the business community in addressing some of those issues. We're not a cash cow. We don't have huge amounts of money. And I think the private sector have a responsibility and a duty themselves to make sure that the environments that they provide are safe and welcoming. But we clearly will work in partnership with them to make sure that that happens. There is the stick, obviously, with regard to licensing and trading standards that we can use if we need to make sure that they do follow certain procedures. But we rather work in partnership. We'd like to work in partnership and make sure that we all understand what those threats and risks are and how we can maybe reduce them.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah. As I say, it is nice to encourage you. Said obviously, you obviously I'm got resources, but you mentioned business, so it would be said to say if the way that Swansea's been developed at the moment, the way we're moving forward, plus as I say with the link in with BID.
We've already had and started those conversations, Mike, with BID and Russell and the group there, and I think that what we've got to be mindful of is, although the footfall is clearly significantly higher in the city centre than anywhere else, we can't lose sight of the fact that there are businesses around Swansea that would also benefit. So I think the focus is, yes, BID within the city centre, but then how we maybe develop that conversation to the wider business community within Swansea. But I agree. I think there's a huge opportunity with the investment that is currently ongoing and planned. We'd be foolish not to try and be part of that going forward in looking at how we can, make Swansea a safer place for people to live, work and visit. We've got a number of bids at the moment. One in particular, which is the Safer Streets bid around the making the environment safer for women. We should hear by the end of November whether or not we've been successful, but that was a joint bid done by the local authority and South Wales Police. So we're hoping we'll have some money there that we can invest in, particularly the evening and nighttime economy, but not just the evening and nighttime economy. It's the economy of Swansea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Mike. Yeah. I'd like to ask you a couple of things, Paul, please. With regard to High Street first, have we got a team in place to actually manage all the new facilities? And I understand, engagement and consultation has been quite active up there, but are we actually touching base with the active groups that are actually established in that area and have been established for a long, long time? People who've been born and bred in that area, who've moved out of the area, but still actively play a part in, collectively supporting the community as far as possible. The other thing I'd like to ask you is, is about when you say we're going to have activities and events, probably by end of year, are we once again going to touch base with those active groups? Because probably they can bring a lot to the table, Paul, because people do speak to them based in the community centre, those based, and they're quite vocal residents or vocal personality, shall we say, who will say it the way it is. So I would say they could bring a lot to the table, and you'll have true hard facts, which probably could support us more in forward planning. what else was I going to say? I want to thank you for the work you are doing up there, because obviously it's coming on leaps and bounds. And I'd like to ask you about if somebody calls something in. So if an incident takes place, as in, for example, in High Street, anyone calls it in about the anonymity of how that reporting is actually reported, how we work together, and if something is reported to the police, which Mike has touched upon, you know, that collectively we work together, because stories where police might have been called to a property, you know, a serious incident, and sometimes the reporting is not fed back to us as a local authority and to the relevant departments, because when we talk about antisocial behaviour, it comes in all different streams, you know, in all different capacities. And we all know, you know, we talk about our stock and our residents. So we've got policies in place, housing as an example. If you breach a tenancy, then we can obviously, you know, enforce that eviction. But in the real world, once it goes to court, Paul, it's all squashed. And we've spent all those physical man hours, all that resource, actually activating our own policies, which when it goes then to the police or the courts, it's squashed or there's a stay of execution. So how do we overcome that? And how do we get a tighter knitting work, a tighter with our partners, so that we do accurately report everything, because there's so much being missed that could be put on the table, and a lot of this could be eliminated. And just one more for you. Got so many notes here, sorry. And just to say, you know, it is about the consultation, and it is about how we touch base with these people. So it is about the right approach to avenue, and we spoke, you know, passionately on this PDC about the way we consult and the language and the way we deliver that. So just really to be mindful of how our consultation and our engagement takes place, because it's not the only vulnerable place in the city. There's other, you know, hotspots in the city. So that engagement, that consultation is really, really sensitive and delicate, and we need to do it right. And just one more thing about us, well done. Because I would say I would rather have 10 of them than pay for a CCTV system, because they're doing the work, Paul. They are actually a quick fix, and they are doing the work over the city. So thank you and your team for that. Positive success. But I still think there's a lot to be done, and I know you're a small team, but I congratulate you on the work that you've done to date. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I've made some notes, so if we can just sort of go through the questions. Can I pick up the last one first with regard to the consultation engagement? I can't stand the word consultation, but I just use the word consultation because it's a common word that everyone understands, and when you use it, everyone nods and goes, "Oh, well, yeah, we're going to go and talk to a load of people and ignore them." So I tend to try and use that engagement and that partnership approach. So you know, like any conversation, it's a two-way thing. You've got to speak and you've got to listen, and I don't think we're particularly very good at it at the listening bit, because we go in with preconceived ideas, or we've already got our decisions made. So you're talking to someone who understands that we need to speak to people and respect their views. Sometimes we don't like their views, we don't feel comfortable with their views, but we need to consider all of that. And I get a lot of that in another area of work with my other hat on with regard to extremism and some of the language that's used. So I fully take on board that, and I think that anything that we do going forward with regard to the Safer Swansea partnership strategy will be engagement, and I would like to actually do some engagement events in and around Swansea, so maybe using ward members' drop-ins, your surgeries that you may have or run. Why don't we try and take the opportunity to maybe join one of those with a focus and ask people their views, so that we can collate, because the more we have, the more understanding we'll have then of what the concerns the public have, not to dismiss any of them, and just to sort of then help prioritize, what that strategy will look like and address. High Street, who's going to manage the space? That's a really good question, Mandy. And if you want to volunteer with a number of volunteers, I'm sure we would be more than happy to accept that. No, it's work in progress. What I've said to everyone that is keen to see it succeed, keen to support it. We just need to take baby steps and let this evolve. And as long as I've got key people who know far more about things like social enterprises and business startups are there to help support going forward, we've got half a chance. So we have had a number of events up there where there have been voices from the community, as you quite rightly say, Mandy, that have come forward. And what we want to do is harness those voices and those ideas for them to start looking at setting up a group that's going to take this forward. Now, that's not to say then that we're going to just hang them out to dry and leave them do it themselves. I've been speaking with Sue Reed and the team there that have done a lot of work with the transition of community centres to groups that now manage and run those. So they are going to support us once we have got volunteers from the community to take this forward. They will have the experience and support from Sue Reed's team, so that they're not, rabbits in the headlights here, that there'll be some support. There will be support there. I'm looking to also have some finance in place so that as this evolves over a 6-12 month period, there isn't the pressures on these activities to generate money to reinvest in the community to make sure that these units are sustainable. So that's not to say that there are some services that want to work from there, that we may be able to use some of the grant funding that they have to help support the revenue costs. But those are things that we're working through. So with regard to the management of it, we haven't got one yet, in as much as a manager or a group, but we have a number of volunteers who we met probably 4 weeks ago that are quite keen to understand a little bit more about what the ask is with regard to running the space. The active groups, we've put a call out to those volunteers that are part of the active groups. I will say that the responses have been slow, so I would welcome advice or support as to how we can perhaps target better. We've had a little bit of so we say, a disconnect with the community centre up there, and the guy that runs that, only in as much as he thinks that we're going to take all of the active groups away from his space and run them from our space, which clearly is not the intention. It's actually for them to complement each other, and use and adapt the space as we see fit. But I will say that the time that I've been up at the units, the community centre remains very closed and very shuttered up. So I'm rather hoping that by us creating this space where hopefully the activities and groups will meet and run, that it will be a catalyst for the community centre to maybe be better used. The active groups that we're looking at, well, I'll give you just a sample of one conversation I've had with a commitment, which is Kay Piper, who does I think it's the lifelong learning, the learning activities that they provide, a lot of free learning activities. She's incredibly keen to use the space, but also with some of the tutors they've got for teaching cookery. they have lost the space that they currently have. So what I'm rather hoping is that not only will the takeaway become a cafe, but a space where we can maybe do some skills with around cooking and food preparation, so that people who think it's cheaper to eat pot noodles realize that actually it's cheaper if you use fresh food to be able to have healthy meals. And the idea is then that the space behind the units can be used for grow your own, greening, all sorts of opportunities there. Some of the other activities, pop-up youth club, we're in discussions with the YMCA. One of the single mums from the community said that she would love to see a space maybe once a week for young people to be able to use board games, gaming, or just generally just being somewhere where it's safe and they can then interact with their peer groups, because at the moment there's really nothing there at all. Pop-up cinema, a lot of people said they can't afford the £30 a ticket or whatever it is for a family to go. Why don't we try and do sort of a very small pop-up cinema for £2, you know, and have some popcorn. Each unit will have its own little kitchen area, so there's the ability there to provide some sort of refreshment, food nights, learning space, engagement space. Got some volunteers that would like to do some low-level mental well-being with the community, that those that don't trust GPs, don't want to register with GPs, but face some challenges and crises in their life, that there may be an opportunity to have conversations with trained people to work through some of the challenges they've got. The reporting of incidents is an interesting one, and I can't obviously speak on behalf. Sorry? Sorry? Can you still hear me? Yep, okay. With regard to the reporting, I can't speak.
Obviously, you know, you know,
I think someone's got their microphone on and Mr. Thomas is speaking. Sorry.
Yeah, I was picking up. Yeah, sorry, I was picking up some feedback there as well. With regard to reporting of incidents, I can't speak on behalf of the police, but what I can say from incidents that are reported in either to our mailbox or to housing with regard to ASB and criminality is that each one is looked on an individual basis. We will obviously speak with South Wales Police. We will also speak with other agencies if there is a requirement to do so, and they will be investigated. Anonymity is important, especially with some of the disclosures that are made through 101 or 999, that some people will want to remain anonymous, and that's their choice. But then that needs to be investigated thoroughly by clearly the police as to the credibility of any of that intelligence or what's been reported. However, with regard to some of the work that we're doing on the county lines and the impact that's having on certain individuals with regard to cuckooing and the exploitation of vulnerable young people, that's all addressed at the CMIT panels, which is very much a multi-agency approach. So not only will we have statutory services with regard to social services, but Barnardo's are there, police are there, probation are there if they're required to be there, our youth justice teams, community safety. So there is this partnership approach in dealing with those issues. Obviously, it's easier if we have, as the chair said, if we have issues with regard to tenants within our own stock, housing stock, then we have those policies that will enable us to deal with that. What does become difficult is if we have significant ASB issues in privately owned properties, we don't have the budget to finance civil litigation or take action against them. So the importance of mediation work comes in here, and Gareth Pritchard, who's the ASB coordinator, is mediation qualified. So he is actually, over the last 6 months, been quite busy with regard to mediation between parties who can't resolve the issues in an amicable way. It's been brought to our attention, so a lot of work is invested in trying to make sure that almost like a restorative justice type approach to some of the issues we've got. But we can't take civil action. We've got no money or no budget to do that. And like with any litigation, there's the chance you may lose, and the costs associated with that is just something that we can't entertain. I think that has picked up on all of the chair's questions, I believe. But I'm quite happy to someone to say that I've dodged one conveniently or missed one. But I think I've addressed, I hope addressed those in some shape or form.
No, that's good enough for me, Paul. Thank you.
Is that okay, Chair?
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
What I was going to suggest, was that if the PDC here would like, once the units are sort of furbished and safe to be in and around, whether or not you would like to have maybe a little sort of visit where you can maybe see what we've got up there and see what we're hopefully looking to develop and take forward, and maybe try and see if some volunteers will be there as well to discuss how good or bad a job we're doing.
Yes, please. Thank you. We'd welcome that.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll link in with Kate and Joe as to sort of when will be good. But we're probably looking, I think probably the best thing would be is look at spring next year, because one, the weather will be better. Hopefully there'll be some areas outside the front of the units where we can sit down and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee there, and maybe see some of the people that are using it and some of the activities that are planned.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. We welcome that.
Okay, great. I'll make sure we sort something out for you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Paul, please? Who's there? Oh, Linda, Councillor Tyler Lloyd. Linda, I've got a question for Paul.
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
There we are. Thanks,
Yes.
Linda.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Linda. Linda, I've got a question for Paul. Do you want to put it in the chat box, Linda? Put the question in the chat box. Are there any more questions for Paul while we're waiting for Linda to pick up, please? Can I just ask you something, Paul? With regard to the anonymity of people calling crimes in or incidents in, with regard to key workers and with regard to us as local members, obviously, you know, we all know the policies, but is it quite intact, and is it kind of risk-free then? You know, is the anonymity in place, or is there a risk that there will be a breach and somehow the offenders will get a feel of, well, what we've called in? And that's not only for us, that's as key workers, prime workers, social workers, health workers, even education, anybody who's in that prime position where they could call in safeguarding or any kind of unsocial behaviour, any incident. And it is about that anonymity and that protection for those individuals.
I can't comment on the broader and wider safeguarding and how that's reported in. I suppose with any call that's made, that the caller wants to remain anonymous, it has to be, the integrity of that information has to be assessed and investigated. But that's not to say that the source still cannot remain anonymous. However, you can't act on one person's view, comment, or issue without it being suitably investigated. With regard to sort of safeguarding and child protection, you'd need to speak with Damien Rees and the child and family team there, and the PPN work that the police do. But I know that there's an exchange of information which is incredibly important when you're talking about safeguarding particularly young people. But I can't speak on that wider and broader question that you've raised there with regard to ensuring that you know, anonymity is protected.
Okay.
Just with regard to the comment you made in the chat bar, can I be very clear that the project at the top of High Street is for everyone? Absolutely everyone, and I'm rather hoping that it will take away.
And to be honest, Paul, I've been out there I've been out there promoting that because the people I speak to are a lot of the old gatekeepers of the area, people who were born there pre-war, post-war, and it is their little community. And the perception is very much, it's all for the whole community. So people have spoken to me and raised that concern. I have said to them, it's a community project, it's for one and all. So I was just wondering how we actually initially promote that. Is there any lessons that we can learn from that?
Well, I think your word of mouth is probably going to be the strongest to start with regard to your involvement and the voices that already live in and around the area. It is for everyone. So if someone wants to run, you know, an activity there that be, I don't know, drawing, painting, watching films, that the space will be there. It's about how it's managed and serviced. But no, it is absolutely for everyone. And in fact, someone said to me a couple of months ago, oh, well, there you go. If you put all these services here, you're going to attract all the low life up there, of which I challenged and said, well, you know, I don't like the term low life for a start. These are human beings that have all sorts of challenges in their life, and if we can destigmatize some of this, so that if I was working there and I sat next to someone who is in crisis, that we don't ostracize some of these people. So yes, it will be for people who have issues and vulnerabilities, but it is for everyone and for the whole community to use, become involved in, to name, to be proud of, to help support, to decorate, to build benches, to help us take it forward.
Can I stop you there for a minute, Paul? Kate?
Yeah, we've got Councillor Tyler Lloyd. I think you're sharing your screen.
Oh, I thought it was me.
Are you able to stop sharing? There should be a button.
I'm in a mess here, so I don't know what I'm doing. Can I just quickly say that I kept quiet because I know nothing about this, and it's been wonderful hearing what's going on. I agree entirely with consultation or engagement, because I've experienced in my ward something going terribly wrong. And also the police are wanting to come to my surgery to sort of run sort of consultation things and see what people think during that my meeting. So I think that we're sort of on board with this, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. And now I'm going to leave the meeting because I'm in a mess. Okay.
Feel free to rejoin,
Thanks.
Councillor. If you leave and rejoin, it'll sort it out.
I think just share very quickly. I mean, for the engagement going forward, I think that clearly I don't have a huge team, but I think that if we can try and build in some way of using the surgeries you have and the engagement you do with your communities as a way of becoming more involved, then if you are willing for that to happen, then we can look at how we can develop that going forward.
Yes, I think we've spent hours talking about engagement and consultation, the way that we actually approach it and deliver it. And I think it's quite close to our hearts as a PDC, and the members that sit on this PDC, you know, have a real passion to get it right, Paul.
Good.
So
Me
thank
too.
you.
Me too.
Yeah. Leslie?
Yeah, just coming in on that, I think one of the important things, and as you said, the difference between the word consultation, no, forget that word, engaged, that's what we should be doing. And part of that, to me, yes, we're asking for their opinions, ideas, and all the rest of it. I think what we've got to always do is say, we can't promise we'll act on what you've come forward, but we will promise to consider it. I think the trouble is some people think, as you said earlier, oh, we're not really asking for their opinions because we're going to do what we like anyway. So I think you need to make sure, manage their perceptions realistically, make sure they understand just because they've come up with some idea, we can't necessarily carry it out. Thanks.
No, I think it's a really fair point. We've had that with some of the engagement events we've done at the top of High Street, you know, for the community space there. We've had some weird and wonderful suggestions. We've even had someone say, bring back the old takeaway, even though it had no star rating and had rats in the rice up to 2 days before they were closed down. So you know, again, I can't judge, and I'm not here to judge, but yeah, we've had some great suggestions. We've had some weird and wonderful ones. We've had some ones that, you know, if I had £1 million, great, it would be fantastic aspirationally to be able to do it. But yeah, we have to have a dose of reality, but at the same time you can do that with a smile on your face and still hopefully bring the community forward.
Are there any more questions or contributions for Paul? No. There we are. You got off quite lightly today, didn't you?
Well, I did, yes, reasonably good, actually. Yes, thank you, Chair. It's lovely to see everyone again, and I will liaise, as I said, with Joe and Kate, and hopefully we'll have maybe that trip up there in early spring to the space where I'm hoping then it will be a vibrant, thriving community space. But we shall see. That's the end game anyway. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, Paul.
Yeah, and you. Thanks very much. Bye.
Joe, sorry. Was there anything you wanted to add?
No, not at all. I'll take on board what Paul said about arranging that visit. So I'll liaise with him sort of outside the meeting about when is a good time for people to go up and visit.
Okay. Craig.
No, nothing
Hello.
from me. It was just no, just logging on. You know, not logging on, but showing my face towards the conclusion.
Okay.
I did get concerned. I thought we were going to have when the member shared his screen. I thought we were going to have a "I'm not a cat" moment. It was, but no. I think everything that was said was good. Thank you.
Well, it's lovely to meet you. You're more than welcome to come along anytime you wish.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You take care. Thanks, Craig. And then we've got our work plan for 2021-22. George, you want to update us, please?
Okay, so in terms of workforce, I've spoken to both Marlyn Dixon, who's the Strategic Programme Manager for the Recovery Programme, and Adrian Chard. Both are happy to come and do a workshop with the Committee on Workforce. I can't get a precise date at this point because Adrian has suggested waiting until we get the results of the staff survey. So I don't know if you can recall, a few months ago a survey was sent out to all the staff. So I think it would be useful to have that workshop, but also have the results of the survey to feed into that workshop. So that's where we are with that. And in terms of the culture of the organisation, Marlyn suggested we look to sort of timetable that in the new year sometime, because I'm sure members are probably aware there's a senior management review underway, and hopefully by that time a newer structure will be in place, and that will probably be a more appropriate time to look at the organisation of the culture. I don't know, Mandy, if you were able to contact Lee about co-production, the co-production workshop. I think that was the other item.
Yeah, no, I haven't spoken to him, to be honest. Yes, I haven't phoned him. I will phone him over the next couple of days. Because the suggestion was that it be member run, but I really think we do need an officer there. What's the lady's name? I can't think of her name. Who works with Lee?
Rhian Miller. Yeah.
Rhian. So I was hoping that either Rhian or Lee could come and facilitate that workshop for us.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm hoping that it will be facilitated. Yeah. Can I leave you just 1 second, guys? Oh. No. Thank you. Sorry, guys. That's going to be in work. See, I'm on call, and I would like that to be facilitated in November, if possible. But then I know how busy they are as a team as well. But I will recently, and if something can be done, we'll see. With regard to the culture of the organisation, I understand what they're saying, but we've got like 6 months left of business, you know, with regarding this PCA running into 22. So I would like to suggest that probably we work with Paul and his team and get a bit of work up and running in community safety. If we're waiting for the organisational culture date for the senior officers to establish a date, maybe we should be doing a bit of work on that community safety, because that really is what most of our passion year is about. So for November, we're waiting, and we for Mark. I'll speak to Lee and Rhian and see if we can get that confirmed for the workshop and start something in for November. It's November the 30th. If not, is there any way we can push that recovery plan up? Because there's a lot happening in the city, so maybe to bring that forward, Joe.
Yeah, I can email Adam Hill, the Deputy Chief Executive, and ask for that to be brought forward, because that really is what the workforce is related to in terms of that recovery item. So yeah, I'll email him, Mandy, and I'll copy you in so you can see sort of whether he thinks that's possible. Okay, thank you.
And you know, with regard to the Sustainable Development Policy,
yeah,
am I of the belief that obviously that's ready to go? The work has been done with CMT and Obviously, the policy being developed. So just really for us to compile a report and put it forward. Is that my belief? Is that correct, Julia?
Yes, I think there was a suggestion about it.
I'll speak to.
Yeah, to Susie Richards. I can follow that up with Susie. I think there was a suggestion that they might want to refocus it slightly to reflect the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which really is like the Welsh Government's take on sustainable development. So it's the same sort of thing. It's just to better reflect that act in there. But I would imagine that would be quite straightforward for them to bring forward.
I think one on would be the Resilience Fund. A bit of going on with the Resilience Fund. Workshop and co-production, lastly, workforce regulation for the new probably the Resilience Fund in November, and get a workshop up and running regarding community safety sometime, so we can bring that back on as well. Can you hear me, Joe?
No, sorry, Mandy, you're breaking up a lot. I couldn't really catch much of that, just the odd words.
It's the signal. Right, sorry, Joe. I thought maybe the Resilience Fund and co-production for November.
Okay.
And then, okay.
Yeah.
And probably the recovery plan, if we can bring them three forward. Because the recovery plan was about the recovery from European Union as well. So maybe we could have.
That's right. Richard Rowland's my manager. I spoke to him this morning, and he's aware of that. So he's working on a report for you about that. So I think he.
So we're going to bring that in November.
I think he said he requested to come to the December meeting, if that was okay. Okay. I could ask him if you'd prefer it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's scheduled for December anyway, Joe.
Okay.
Okay. Kate, are you with us? Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I know Adam Hill wasn't available for the November meeting. He wasn't here, so I think that's why those got pushed back to December. But yeah, I've got all the other details from the other items. That's no problem.
Okay. Right. Is there any other business? Oh, hang on. My hand up here. Who's this? Craig.
Craig, you're on mute.
Thank you, Joanne. Chair, it may be too late now, but if you're in the Guild Hall, they have been having issues with the internet there. Some of the correspondence coming across has been breaking up a little bit. It may be worth switching the camera off on your end.
Right. Yeah, there we are. That's gone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Right then, any other business or any other contribution for today?
Councillor Walton has got a hand up, Chair.
I can't see that. Leslie?
No, I haven't got it up this end.
How
Hope not.
Sorry, both.
Then, so for today then, guys, thank you and appreciate it. Thank you for all your contributions. And I'll speak to Lee, see if we can get a workshop up and running, and then in preparation for November's meeting, which is on the 30th. Okay. Take care all, look after yourselves. I'll see you all soon.
Bye all.